Hey guys, this is Andrew with rockclass101.com, and in this mini lesson, we're going to be learning a Celtic-inspired etude, which is going to teach you how to fret notes with your left hand thumb. Now, 99% of our playing, we can get away with using one of these four fingers to play the notes, but sometimes you may encounter a musical phrase that is really challenging to play with one of these four fingers. And that presents the opportunity to utilize your thumb to make it a lot easier. Now we see that example at the very start of this etude. If I play the opening phrase, which is 2 bars in length, sounds and looks like this, and take note of my left hand thumb. So that's what the phrase sounds like. If I try to play that exact same phrase using these four fingers, look at how much more difficult it becomes. So you can already hear it's pretty sloppy. It's literally looks like 3 times the amount of work is happening with my left hand, and that's because like 3 times the work is happening with my left hand. I'm working so much harder to play the exact same phrase of music when I can just make it so much easier if I use my thumb. So that's what this lesson is all about. It's a short and sweet little etude that's going to introduce you to utilizing that thumb to make passages like this so much easier to play. So we're going to be talking a lot about proper left hand form when fretting with the thumb, but keep that thought in mind because I want to take a step back right now and just talk a little bit about this lesson. So in this video, I'm going to be teaching you guys how to play the entire etude, but if you want to get the tabs to print off and follow along with, that's going to be available at this link right here. Or you can go to the site, rockclass101.com, and do a search for ML004. That's the lesson number for this lesson. Now, also on the page is the really cool interactive on-screen tab viewer. Now, this is a really cool feature where you can hit play, you can watch the tabs scroll across in real time, you can highlight bars to loop sections, slow it down to any speed you need. Just makes learning this song that much easier. All right, so there's a few things we want to talk about before we jump into learning this. The first one is the elephant in the room. This song is for low G. So make sure you grab your low G ukulele to follow along with. Now the second thing I want to touch on is rhythms. So this song uses a swung eighth note fill. So if you're new to understanding the difference between playing with a straight eighth note fill versus a swung eighth note fill, jump into this lesson. I'll also link it in the description box below. And then the second set of rhythms I want to talk about is that this tune uses a ton of eighth note triplet rhythms. So if you don't know what those are, I've got a really cool lesson in the description box below. It's a video lesson, short and sweet, and it'll explain that rhythm to a T. So make sure you understand both of those. So swung eighth notes and what an eighth note triplet is from a rhythmic perspective before jumping into this tune. And last but not least, I want to touch on our right hand approach for finger picking. This is really a tune that has no right or wrong, but to give you kind of a starting point, you could use a 4-finger approach. So that means that thumb gets string 4, index gets string 3, middle is string 2, ring is string 1, or you can use a 3-finger approach. So thumb gets double duty, index gets string 2, middle gets string 1. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the big key point of this lesson, which is using your thumb to play notes. In order to do this, we have to take a look at proper left hand form, because if we don't have proper left hand form, we're not going to be able to have any dexterity in our left hand. So keep that thought in mind. So here's how we're going to start. I want you guys to go ahead and take your left hand and stick it out as if you were shaking my hand. Now let's go ahead and turn our left hand sideways so it's flat, kind of like a piece of paper. Now with the index of your right hand, go ahead and place the fingertip onto the knuckle of the index of your left hand. So you can see I've placed it directly on top of the knuckle. Now let's move our index finger slightly up so it's right in front of the knuckle. So I moved it about the length of a fingertip. Now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and move my hand back into the handshake position. And take note of this point. This is where we're going to rest the neck of the ukulele onto. So slightly in front of the knuckle. So let's go ahead and take the neck. Let's put it onto that point. And you can see that I'm lined up essentially within the first fret. Okay? Now, let's take our thumb and let's bend at that joint and fret the second fret of string 4. Now, the key thing here is that we're not going to be fretting with the tip of our thumb like we do when we use one of these 4 fingers. Instead, we're going to be fretting with this part right in front of where the curve or that joint bends, right? So right about right there. And that's a really key point to grasp, because anytime you use your thumb, you can never ever fret with the tip. It's always going to be about right there. So that's something you want to keep in mind. Very, very important for getting this technique down. So guys, let's go ahead and just push down with enough pressure so we get that note to ring crystal clear. And if it's ringing crystal clear, let's go ahead and move on to the next step. Now for the next step, I want you to fret an E minor chord without the first string. So that means that we're going to take our ring, put it onto the 4th fret of string 3, middle finger onto the 3rd fret of string 2. All along the way, we're keeping that thumb held down. Now, here's the key with this shape. Take that index finger of your right hand and make sure that you have a gap underneath. So you can see how my index finger can fit underneath there because I've got a bit of a gap, right? If your index finger can't fit underneath, that means that you're hugging the neck. So we don't want to hug the neck. We want to have a little bit of a gap where we can fit our index finger into, okay? And the reason we want to have a bit of a gap is because it allows us to have movement and dexterity in these fingers. Because keep in mind that we have to be able to play the musical phrase. All while keeping that bass note held down. And that gap allows us to have dexterity in our left hand. So I know that's a lot to take in, so let's go ahead and cover it one more time. So if you stick your left hand out like you're shaking my hand, turn it sideways, take the index finger, put it onto the knuckle of the left hand, move it slightly up the length of a fingertip, turn it back to handshake position. That's the point you're resting the neck on. And we're going to go ahead and rest the neck within the first fret. Then take the thumb. Remember, we can't fret and play this note on the tip. It has to be about right there. So play the 2nd fret of string 4. Then make the top half of the E minor chord. Make sure we have enough of a gap so we can fit our index finger underneath there. That allows us to have enough movement and dexterity to use these fingers to play the phrase, the notes of the phrase. And at this point, let's see if we can play string 4, string 3, string 2. If all that is ringing out, then you're good to go for this lesson. And if you need to work on it again, feel free to hit rewind on this video and work through those steps at your own pace. Now, let's go ahead and put up the first line of tab. So we're going to be looking at measure 1 and 2 for melody A. Now, measure 1 and 2, there's something you can spot right off the bat. And that is that measure 1 is in 4/4 and measure 2 is in 3/4. So right off the bat, not only is this song a little bit hard because we're using our thumb, but the time signature changes. So keep in mind 4 beats for the first bar, 3 beats for the second bar. Now look at the rhythm. You can see the first 2 notes are 8th notes. Keep in mind those are swung 8th notes. And then the rest of the bar and measure 2 is all triplets, so 8th note triplets. So keep that in mind because you want to be thinking how you're going to count this. You can count this 2 different ways. You can count it as 1 and triplet, 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 Or you can count it where you have a little bit more description in terms of where you are at in each measure. And that would be something like this. 1 and 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3. That second way provides a little bit more context in where you're at in each measure. So let's just start with measure 1, and I'm going to go ahead and play it, and then we'll break it down and learn it. So that's a pretty good gist of what our first measure sounds like. Now, we already know the shape that we're playing out of, but the thing is we don't actually have to use all 3 fingers held down at the get-go. We can add a finger at the time it's called for in the music. So let's go ahead and start with just our thumb fretting the 2nd fret of string 4. And let's play that note. Then we're going to add the ring finger to the 4th fret of string 3. Let's play that note. And then our middle finger goes on to the 3rd fret of string 2. Now, when we play this note, it's going to be the start of a double pull-off. So to do this, we're going to go ahead and play the 3rd fret on string 2 with our middle finger, pull off to the 2nd fret with our index, and then pull off to the open E. So you may want to just practice that pull off in and of itself, just like that. Try to keep it steady. 1, 2, 3. Remember, because we're playing triplets right there. And what you can do at this point is just to loop that opening phrase. So we have 1 and 2, 2, 3, 1 and triplet. Remember, you can count it either way, but if we loop it together, come in, I'll play it a few times. Sounds a little bit like that. So don't worry too much if you're not super locked into the timing right now. It's really challenging with the thumb action that's happening. As we move on, let's look at the second half of this bar. We're going to start off with another pull off. This time around, it's just going to be 2 pulls off to the open E. But here's the thing. Watch these top 2 fingers. You can see that they're held down and sustaining throughout this phrase. So you want to keep that in mind. So take the index, put it down on the 2nd fret of the 2nd string, and pull off to the open E. Then play string 3, and then open E again, then string 3, and then lift the ring finger up and go to the 2nd fret on string 3. So the second half of this measure, keep these 2 fingers held down, starts with the pull off. Okay, so you may want to hit pause and just work on that. Triplet, triplet. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Of course, at this point in the music, it should be 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. Now, practicing from the second half kind of sounds abrupt. I would practice this entire measure together. So there's a few times on a loop for you guys to practice with, and if that's too fast, you can use the cog in the Etude player to slow it down to a speed that's good for you. But that's really what you want to do. You want to practice this measure as a whole, just loop. So it's the rinse and repeat approach. Now, the key thing to take away again is that we want to keep our thumb held down throughout, because we want that bass note to sustain and ring throughout this measure. Now, as we go into measure 2, it's going to be a continuation of that triplet rhythm. I'm going to play one more time a little bit cleaner. So that's a little bit cleaner for the second measure. But at this point, you can continue holding with the thumb that bass note, or you can lift up and let pressure out. There's no right or wrong, so I'll leave it up to you on which one you want to do. But we're going to go ahead and start with a double pull off. So we're going to use the ring finger to play the 4th fret of string 3, and we're going to pull off to the 2nd fret, and then pull off to the open. So I've got 3rd, pulls off to index, pulls off to open. Go back down onto the 2nd fret with the index finger, and give me a pull off again to the open. So together, sounds and looks like that. Last few notes, we're going to take the ring, put it on the 4th fret of string 4, open C, back to the 4th fret of string 4, and then open G. So together, and what do you notice? This is short compared to the first bar. Remember, we're going to 3/4 for the second measure. Triplet, triplet, triplet. Counting out where we're at. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3. Okay, let's try that together on a loop. Nice. So I would say that second measure is a lot easier than the first measure because it opens up the option of either keeping that bass note held down or not keeping it held down. So let's do this, guys. Let's play measure 1 into 2. I'm going to play it once, you come in with me on the second time. Nice. How did you do? So these 2 bars, they're going to get repeated, so you're actually going to be playing them again. So our intro, or our entirety of the A melody, is 4 bars in length. So the key thing here, again, we want to just take away is that for measure 1, we want to keep the thumb anchored throughout so that bass note sustains. For the second measure, it's up to you if you want to keep pressure held down or not to continue that sustain. Not a big deal either way. But remember that measure 2 takes us into 3/4. So we have 4/4 into 3/4. Now as we continue with this little tune, we're going into our B melody, which is a breeze to play compared to the A melody. So let's take a look at measure 3 and 4. Now I'm going to go ahead and play through these 2 bars so we can hear what it sounds like, and then we'll break it down and learn it. So off the bat, you can see it's super easy, and we have all swung 8th note rhythm. So very, very simple to play. Now let's take our middle finger and let's put that onto the 3rd fret of string 2. So we're going to keep this finger anchored throughout these 2 bars. So go ahead and play the open C, then play the 3rd fret of string 2, then open A. With the index finger, put it on the 2nd fret of string 1. Give me that note, pull off to the open A, and then back to the 2nd string. So you have... Okay, if you look at the 4th bar, it's identical except for the first hit. You're going to hit the open G instead of the open C. So let's try those 2 bars together. Keep in mind that they are in 3/4. So we have 1 and 2 and 3, go. Nice. Now as we go into the next 2 bars, take a look at what happens. You can see off the bat that measure 6 is identical to measure 4, and measure 5 is almost identical to measure 3. The only difference is that we're substituting the end with a triplet. So we're starting the same, open C, 2nd string, 3rd fret, open A, back to the 2nd fret, but this time instead of pulling off to the open, we're going to substitute that with a triplet. So take your pinky finger, put it on 5 on string 1, and pull off to the 2nd fret, pull off to the open. Rhythmically, sounds like that. 1 and 2 and triplet. So let's try that together. So we have 1 and 2 and triplet. Nice. And then back into measure 6. Same as measure 4. So 5 into 6 together. Nice. And if I play 3 through 6 all the way through, sounds like this. So melody B is a breeze compared to melody A. At this point, you guys are going to go back into melody A. So you're going to play these 2 bars to a T again. So this is measure 7 and 8 on the tab, but they're identical to measure 1 and 2. The only thing you see that's different is that there's a little note for you to do a retardando on the last repeat. So as you play through these last 2 bars, I would go ahead and just start to slow down and measure 8. And then resolve on an A minor chord. So the last melody A, remember you're going to repeat it. Slow. And then end on an A minor. And it's that simple. So the bulk of the work with this etude is in utilizing the thumb for that A melody. So that's where your big chunk of practice time is going to come in to play. Keep in mind of all the things that we talked about. So proper left hand form for fretting with the thumb, that is vital. And then keeping that sustain throughout that first measure as you play the melody. That's really, really vital as well. And then you also want to keep in mind that the first bar is in 4/4, the second bar is in 3/4, and then that 3/4 it continues into melody B. So those are all the key points of this little mini etude. But that's going to wrap up everything for this lesson, guys. So I wanted to go ahead and just give you a friendly reminder that if you wanted to get the tabs to print off, keep for your records, that was available at this link right here. Or you can go to the site, rockclass101.com, do a search for ML004. That's the lesson number for this lesson. And also on the page was the really cool interactive on-screen tab viewer. So you can literally hit play. You can watch that tab scroll across in real time. You can highlight bars to loop sections, slow it down to any speed you want. Just a great tool in learning this tune that much easier. Alright guys, so again, I hope you enjoyed this little Celtic inspired etude, and if you have any questions, feel free to write them below or on our forums or send me an email. Always happy to help any way that I can. But until then, I'll catch you in the next lesson. Take care.